Thank you very much. I'm very proud and honored to be here with you, and I feel very proud to be a part of this wonderful project. And I'm very honored to speak with you about some topics that I care a lot. We are talking about STEM, and I will talk about a topic that is a part of the STEM system, is a little transversal, but maybe it's a topic that is inside every learning and teaching activity. I'm talking about inclusion. I just want to say that it was very interesting for me listening to the other participants that talk about STEM properly, and especially when I listened to the colleague from Finland, a country that I love a lot, because I listened to was really true, and I knew that. But today we will talk together about inclusion. Just a little bit of autobiographical detail to understand better why I'm so involved in inclusion topics. I am a professor. I teach math and physics. I'm an engineer. I'm a trainer of teachers, but I start my career in learning with many problems, difficulties. Somebody told me later, maybe learning disabilities at university, where I worked from 10 years. They told me that I am a dyslexic and dyscalculic compensed. It means that when I start school, I found it very much difficulties in learning, especially mathematics. And so at that time, I was struggling, trying to learn, and I was bad at school. And one day I found people that helped me to learn in a different way. And from that point on, my life changed. And so I started learning very well, and I started being very good at school. And so my life changed. From that point on, I understand that this thing was very interesting for me. And I'm talking about learning, and learning with difficulties or disabilities, and pass all this problem. And so I just wanted to say that to make the audience aware that I know what I'm talking about, because I live in my life. And so let's talk about Italian experience in the path of considering inclusion in education, an important tool of evolution in the field of social problems, but in the field of economy and progress. Okay, inclusion means change point of view, and so considering diversity as a value and not as a weakness. It means that starting from I would say a primitive point of view, the school system was organized especially for medium people, and so the teachers used to be good in teaching just in the middle level. People that were too smart, too intelligent, that now we call them gifted, or people that were too a little retarded or with handicap, or in the middle, people with learning disabilities were out of that system. With inclusion, we mean that we're considering differences as a value, not a weakness, but we mean that we have to know how to treat differences to let everybody express themselves in the best way, 100% of the potential in social way, in a cognition way, and in learning way. Okay, and so let's talk about the process that took Italy from to now in the inclusion system. From the beginning of the 70s in Italy, we began to be aware of the need of an inclusive system from the crowd, from the family, from the society. And so we started to think about the main tool to make this change. We founded this tool in 4 points. Legislation. We knew that it was necessary to change the legislation and the way the school was managed. Training courses to improve skills in teachers and professional of education, and cultural disclosure to change the mentality, because we will see that the mentality is very important in changing. Sometimes family helps to help children and students, sometimes not, and so a cultural disclosure is very important. And then infrastructure and technology. In this little speech, I will talk especially about legislation and training courses. Okay, we start in the late 70s with the first law that help handicap and disability people to spend the time in the same school of the other, because before there were separated classes for them, and the research and the studies and the experience showed that it was very bad, because we used to have classes with just handicaps, and socially and in the learning way it was proved that it was not the best way. And so we start in the 77 with this first law, and then it was improved in the 92 with the law that is in charge now, that protect all the handicapped people, retarded people. But now I will talk about the thing I know better, that regard the learning disability and all the special needs. In the 2010, when I start my path in the research, there were a very important law that changed all the system, and in order to include in all the ways people that were different in a different way. I'm talking about learning disabilities like dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, and so on, and other disease or difficulties in learning. With this law, the system and the state tried to change the approach of teaching, of considering these people that are not retarded, but can seem retarded just watching the result. The problem is that a person that is dyslexic maybe is not able to read in the right way, but is able to learn in the right way. Sometimes very high IQ can have learning disabilities, and so the result is very different from the potential. And so in the 2010, we started to try to bring all the results from the research into the system. And the result in the research told us that with the right way of teaching, with the right way of using the evaluation in the school, we can bring a student from the low level to the top. I use very often with my students and with my colleague when I train them, I use myself as an example. I started my career with the lowest degree and evaluation, and I ended my career with the best evaluation, especially in mathematics and physics. And so that change became just with a change of a strategy of learning and studying, and with a different approach of all this path. I'm very proud to say that in my experience, we could be able to bring some students from a diagnosis of retarded function to the degree at university, and to very good result in mathematics. Some of them are now work in finance, some of them are doctors, and so just with a change of approach and strategy. I have to say it's not possible always, but with the right approach and the right work, of course, it's always possible to come closer to the potential of the individuals. Later in 2012, our system grow a little bit more to consider not just the learning disabilities, but the special needs in education. That means maybe difficulties in the language for foreign people, or maybe social troubles that treated in the right way lead to success for the single. Just a few things about the changing of the system, and so changing from and going in the direction of inclusion. Inclusion is not a solution if there is not special skills there are not special skills from the teachers. And to change the skills of the teacher, we need a very, very deep and strong program in training for the teacher. And so in Italy, we invest a lot of energy to train teacher and to change mentality. And when we speak about training, we talk about lecture, and we talk about workshop, and we talk about project. Especially, we saw that main lecture, maybe 1 week, 1 month of deep training is not enough to train teacher and to change their mentality and their practices of work. They can be used as motivational tools, information, but then we saw that it's very important to work with them, to supervise, to create long-time project in the school with supervisor, and it's a long path. But we saw that training is the way to change the system in this perspective of inclusion. Otherwise, inclusion could be just a word and could be something not useful for the change of the system and for helping people. In my experience, I worked a lot in several fields, especially in mathematics empowerment. I mean, work with people that has bad result in mathematics, and sometimes they are dyscalculic, they have learning disabilities, and so find the right way to let them learn in the best way. In Italy is a big problem because mathematics, 90% of the students hate mathematics and science, and we know that is because of educational problem used to hate mathematics and science. With the right way of teaching, it's possible to change completely the aspect of this situation. We worked a lot, as I told before, in educational robotics, and I don't want to say anything more because the colleague before said everything in the best way, but I can say that I saw great result in my experience too, and it's a very deep motivational tool to put all the people, young students, a little closer to something that sometimes appear hard and not sweet and not warm. I would like to say something recalling what the colleague said before about the possibility of having fun with science and learning. I would say that that research, university research, academical research in cognition could say that if a subject starts learning mathematics in a very deep way, and after some years of darkness and of misunderstanding, just learning in a deep way mathematics move emotional experience and very often drive to a very deep sense of pleasure. And so I would say that in my experience in training, research and workshop, working with teachers, but with young students with disabilities or difficulties, when we are able to bring them to a deep comprehension of the subject of science, mathematics, I am an expert in mathematics learning. we can see a different change in their approach, in their state of mind, and in their emotion. And I could say, after a training with good result, I say to my students that ask me why studying mathematics, this is a very bad question that they asked us. I said, if you try to understand deep mathematics, you will understand that it's good to understand mathematics because it's a deep pleasure. And when they try that, they know that it's true. And so when I can be able to make my students feel the deep pleasure, I know that my job was done in the best way. And so my experience with Caravan of Knowledge, I was very grateful and very proud to be a part of this team. It was a great experience because I know that is the right way for a country to develop and to grow up. And the path of learning and learning science and be careful about inclusion and difficulties and integration, I know that is the path because I'm working on this path from years. And so it was a very great pleasure because the organization was great. The cooperation was exceptional. And the goal and the topics treated were the topic I love and I believe in. And so I hope that this experience will go on. And this is the beginning, but I'm sure that with this organization, all the project will go very far. And so ideas for the future, invest a lot in training activities to learn the young people, students to grow with science and in the best way, develop the best of their potential. This is the past.